The music academy was unusually busy that afternoon. Students walked through the long, quiet corridors carrying notebooks and folders. Soft piano melodies floated out of different practice rooms. It was evaluation day, one of the most important days of the year. Everyone was nervous. Inside the main hall, a small stage had been arranged carefully. A grand piano stood in the center, under bright lights. Several teachers sat behind a long table, holding pens and papers, ready to judge each performance. One by one, students were called forward. Some played well. Some struggled. A few forgot their notes completely. The teachers listened, nodded, made serious comments. Everything was going as expected until she arrived, near the back row. A young woman sat quietly among the other students. No one really noticed her at first. She wore very simple clothes. Nothing fancy. Nothing expensive. Her hair was tied neatly, and she held her bag close to her chest, as if trying to stay invisible, compared to the confident, stylish students around her. She looked ordinary. Almost too ordinary. One student leaned toward another and whispered, "Have you seen her before?" The other shook his head. "No, she must be new." Not. Another girl looked at her and quietly said, "She looks nervous." No one imagined anything special about her. When her name was finally called, she stood up slowly. Her steps were calm, but a little shy. As she walked toward the stage, the teachers glanced at her papers. She was listed as a new admission. There were no big achievements written beside her name. No awards, no certificates. Nothing impressive at all. To them, she looked like a complete beginner. One senior teacher leaned toward the others. "Let us see what she can really do," he said quietly. "Give her something challenging." Another teacher raised an eyebrow. "Something difficult?" she asked. "Yes," he replied. "We should test her properly," they all agreed. Instead of giving her a simple piece like they gave to other new students, they chose one of the hardest compositions in the entire program. It was a piece, usually reserved for highly advanced performers. It was not a fair decision, but they wanted to see how she would react under pressure. The senior teacher called her. "Closer. This will be your piece," he said, handing her the sheet music. "Please prepare to perform it now." The woman looked at the paper. Her expression did not change. She did not complain. She did not look scared. She did not ask for an easier option. She simply nodded. "All right," she said softly. A few students sitting in the audience exchanged surprised looks. "That piece is impossible." One whispered, "Especially for a new student." Another added. Someone else murmured, "She's going to fail badly." A couple of them even felt a little sorry for her. It seemed obvious to everyone that the teachers had set her up for embarrassment. The woman walked toward the piano. Her steps were gentle and steady. From the audience seats, many expected to see trembling hands or a frightened face, but she showed none of that. She placed the music sheet carefully on the stand. She adjusted the piano bench with calm movements. Everything she did looked peaceful and controlled. The teachers watched her closely in their minds. This was just another nervous beginner who would probably stop after a few wrong notes. One teacher whispered with a small smile, "Let's see how long she lasts." Another nodded. "Probably not very long," he replied. The hall grew quiet. The woman sat down at the piano. For a brief moment, she closed her eyes. It was not a dramatic gesture. It was simple, natural, as if she was greeting an old friend. Then, she opened them again and gently rested her fingers on the keys. Something about her posture looked different now, but no one paid attention to that detail. Not yet. Her hands began to move. The first notes filled the hall. Clear, clean, perfect. The teachers immediately looked up from there papers. "That was not the sound of a beginner," she continued. Playing the difficult composition flowed smoothly from her fingers. As naturally as breathing, there was no hesitation, no confusion, no struggle, only pure control. The atmosphere in the room slowly began to change. The quiet whispers faded away. Students leaned forward. In their seats, one of the teachers straightened. his back and stared at her in disbelief. This cannot be her first time playing, he muttered under his breath. Another teacher nodded silently, completely focused on her performance. The piece grew harder. Fast sections arrived. Complex transitions followed. Emotional parts demanded deep expression. She handled everything effortlessly. It was as if the piano was not testing her. She was mastering it. The same teachers who had planned to challenge her now realized something uncomfortable. They had misjudged her completely, and they knew it. Among the students, reactions were even stronger. The ones who had whispered and doubted her now watched. With wide eyes, some felt embarrassed for their earlier words, others felt inspired. No one had imagined that such extraordinary talent was sitting quietly among them all. This time, as the music filled the hall, the woman seemed to change. On the stage, she was no longer shy. She was confident, focused, powerful. Her simple appearance no longer mattered. Her quiet personality was forgotten. All that existed now was her music. One teacher leaned toward his colleague. "Who is she?" he whispered. The other shook his head. Slowly, "I have no idea," he replied. The final part of the composition approached, the most difficult section. Everyone held their breath. If she made even one mistake now, it would ruin everything. But she did not. Her fingers moved with perfect timing. Every note landed exactly where it belonged. It was flawless. The last powerful chord echoed through the hall, then silence, a deep, heavy silence. The woman lifted her hands gently from the keys. She sat still, waiting. For a few seconds, no one reacted. The teachers looked at one another. Searching for words, students sat frozen, unsure what they had just witnessed. Then slowly, one teacher began to clap, another joined. Within moments, the entire hall was filled with applause, loud, genuine, and full of respect. The woman stood up and bowed her head humbly. She did not smile proudly. She did not celebrate. She simply waited quietly, just as she had from the beginning. The senior teacher cleared his throat. "That was exceptional," he said, trying to stay professional. "You performed that piece beautifully." "Thank you," she replied softly. He hesitated, then asked, "May I ask where you learned to play like this?" The woman gave a small, gentle smile. "I have been playing piano for many years," she answered. The room fell silent again. Those simple words changed everything. At that moment, every person in the hall understood one important truth. They had tried to test the wrong person. The shy young woman they had assumed was a beginner was not a beginner at all. She was something far greater, and the teachers, who believed they were judging her, suddenly realized that they were the ones being taught a lesson. As the applause slowly faded, the evaluation day felt very different from before. No one looked at her the same way anymore. Curiosity filled the room. Questions filled the teachers' minds. Who was she really? Where had she trained? And why had such a talented musician appeared so quietly among them? The woman returned to her seat at the back of the hall. She folded her hands in her lap and waited calmly, just like before. But now many eyes were on her, eyes filled with admiration, eyes filled with wonder. The day that was supposed to be ordinary had turned into something unforgettable, and everyone could feel it. Something much bigger was about to be revealed. The applause slowly faded, but the surprise in the hall did not. Even after the last echo of clapping disappeared, people were still staring at the young woman as if they had just witnessed something impossible. Only minutes ago, she'd been just another quiet student. Now she was the center of everyone's attention. The teachers sat at their long table, exchanging confused looks. Their expressions were no longer serious and confident. They were filled with disbelief. One of them whispered, "We completely misjudged her." Another nodded slowly, "Yes, we really did." The senior teacher adjusted his glasses and looked toward her again. He had spent many years judging students. He had heard thousands of performances. But he had never seen anything like this, not from someone they assumed was a beginner. The next student was called to perform, but hardly anyone paid attention. All minds were still stuck on what had just happened. Some students turned around in their seats to look at her again. She played like a professional, one girl whispered. No, another replied quietly. Even better than that. During the short break, the teachers gathered together. They needed answers. Her file says nothing special. One teacher said, flipping through the papers, no big school, no famous training. How is this possible? The senior teacher shook his head. Paper does not always show the truth, he replied thoughtfully. We must talk to her. When the evaluations ended for the day, the hall slowly emptied, but the young woman did not leave. She stayed seated, calmly waiting, as if she already knew she would be called. Finally, the senior teacher approached her. May we have a word with you? He asked politely. She stood up and nodded. Double quotes, of course. She answered. The teachers invited her to sit with them, for the first time since she arrived. They looked at her not as a student, but with real respect. The senior teacher spoke gently. We owe you an apology, he began. We gave you that piece because we thought you were inexperienced. She listened quietly. We did not expect anything like what you showed us today. The woman gave a small, humble smile. It is all right, she said softly. I understand why you thought that. One teacher leaned forward. But please tell us, he asked. Where did you learn to play like that? The room became silent. Everyone waited for her answer. She took a deep breath. I started playing piano when I was very young, she said. My mother loved music. She could not afford lessons, but she saved money little by little so I could learn. Her voice was calm, but full of feeling. I practiced every day for many years. The teachers listened carefully. She continued. I did not study in famous schools. I did not have important teachers. Most of what I learned came from hard work and love for the piano. She looked down at her hands. Music was my best friend. One of the younger teachers asked gently, Then why did you join as a beginner student here? The woman hesitated for a moment. Life became difficult, she explained. For some years, I had to stop playing. I had to work, take care of family matters, and focus on other responsibilities. She paused. I was afraid that after so much time away, I might have lost my ability. The senior teacher's expression softened. So you joined here to start again? He asked. Yes, she replied quietly. I wanted a fresh beginning. The room was filled with deep understanding at that moment. The teachers realized something important. True talent does not need expensive certificates. It does not need big names or famous backgrounds. Sometimes, it simply lives inside a person who never had the chance to show it. The senior teacher smiled warmly. Well, he said, you certainly have not lost anything. In fact, you may be one of the most gifted pianists we have ever seen. The woman looked surprised by his words. Another teacher added, What you played today is beyond student level. It is professional. Truly professional. It's for the first time. A little light of pride appeared on her face. Thank you, she said sincerely. News of her performance spread quickly through the academy. By the next day, almost everyone knew about the quiet genius from the evaluation hall. Students, who had ignored her before now, greeted her with respect. Some even asked her for advice. The same people who had whispered about her, plainclothes, now spoke about her incredible skill. A few days later, the teachers called her again. This time, not for a test, but for an opportunity. We would like you to perform at the Academy concert next month, senior teacher said. It is a big event, and we believe you deserve to be on that stage. Her eyes widened. Me? She asked. Yes, he replied with a smile. Without any doubt. She went home that evening feeling something she had not felt in years. Hope for a long time. Life had made her believe that her dream was over, that music belonged only to her past. But now, a door was opening again. She began practicing every day with new energy, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. The piano was no longer just an instrument to her. It was a part of her soul that had finally awakened again. When the concert day arrived, the hall was full. Students, parents, and teachers gathered to hear the performances. Many of them were especially waiting for one person, the quiet young woman who had shocked everyone as she walked onto the stage that night. She was no longer the nervous new student. She was confident, calm, ready the moment her fingers touched the keys. The audience felt the same magic again. Her music filled the hall with emotion and beauty. Some people closed their eyes to listen. Others smiled without even realizing it by the time she finished. The applause was louder than anyone else's. The senior teachers stood up proudly. That day, they did not just discover a talented student, they discovered a true artist. After the concert, many people came to congratulate her. Some asked where she had learned to play. Others asked if she gave lessons for the first time. She realized that her talent could create a new future, but more important than praise or attention was something deeper. She had found her confidence again. She had learned to believe in herself once more. One evening, as she sat alone in a practice room, she thought about everything that had happened. How easily people had judged her. How quickly they had doubted her, and how music had spoken for her when she needed it most. She understood a powerful truth. People may not always see your worth, but if you stay true to your passion, the right moment will come. The teachers also learned an unforgettable lesson. Never judge someone by appearance. Never assume you know a person's limits, because sometimes the quietest people carry the greatest gifts. The academy was no longer just a place of exams and tests for her. It had become the place where her dream was reborn, and all because she had the courage to sit at a piano and let her heart speak. The shy young woman who walked in unnoticed was now respected by all, not because she demanded attention, but because her talent could not be ignored, and that was the most beautiful victory of all.